What's up, everybody? Today we're talking about none other than lanterns. I can't get enough. I can't get enough of the show. I'm really liking this show, and so I am doing another video about lanterns. I literally just did an episode 2 review. Now we're gonna talk about this theory. I got a couple theories here. I have my favorite theory, and I have the theory that is probably what they're gonna do. Okay, the most likely theory. But my favorite theory has two versions. All right. So we got to talk about this. I talked a bit about it in my episode 2 review, but I figured, hey, this thing is super cool. And I didn't talk about my alternate version of that theory. So I figured I'll talk about that, both of those right now, and then the most likely theory. That's probably what they're going to do because anyways, we'll talk about it. We'll start out with my favorite theory. All right. We'll catch you up with what I talked about in episode 2. Then we'll get into the alternate version of it, which kind of spins that whole thing on its head. Honestly, that is my most favorite version of my favorite theory, and then we'll dive into what is most likely. Okay, so let's dive in here. It all starts with that conversation between that bald dude and John Stewart. John Stewart got kidnapped, and he's being not really interrogated. He's being recruited. Okay, you have this group of people, these aliens, right? You find out the alien that was kidnapped, that was arrested in the first episode, that blew himself up, was part of an organization, was part of a group of people that are hunting down a manhunter, okay? And that's what this investigation, that's what this whole entire season is about, right? So, come on, this theory is so freaking cool. All right, I'm getting excited. So they're explaining this whole story, okay? So they imprinted it into John Stewart's mind. They have this gun called a stamp, and they put it to John Stewart's head. And it's imprinting all of these memories. And what they're explaining is there was a Holocaust-level event on their planet, a genocide. A manhunter came to their planet, took the form of something that they loved, of someone that they trusted, and was a catalyst for a genocide on their planet, a Holocaust-level event that wiped out their race, pretty much. And he's showing this to John Stewart, and John Stewart is convulsing and shaking and crying, seeing the suffering of these people. Just with that alone, what does that remind you of? The first thing that popped into my head is the extinction of the Martians, the genocide of the Martians. So that's already crazy right there, but let me pause just for a second and let's go back to the trailer. Because there's a scene in the trailer where you have Hal Jordan and John Stewart on a planet. And that planet looks red and rusty. And it has 2 moons. Now let me ask you a question. What planet is red and rusty and has 2 moons? That's oddly specific. That's incredibly specific, okay? What planet is red and rusty and has 2 moons? Let me give you a hint. It starts with M and ends with S. Yeah, it's Mars. Mars has two moons and it is red and rusty. These people, imagine if John Stewart was just shown the destruction of Mars, the genocide of the Martians, and the Manhunter was the catalyst for it. And now you have a group of Martians, the sole survivors of Mars, coming on Earth to try and hunt down the Manhunter that was responsible for their death. You know what that also means? There's a possibility that we just saw a conversation between Martian Manhunter and John Stewart. We just saw John Jones and John Stewart have a talk. That bald dude right there might have been John Jones. How crazy is that? How absolutely insane is that? Now, you're seeing dots being connected here. That makes sense, especially the planet stuff with the 2 moons and the rusty nature of it. That's kind of crazy, okay? And the whole story, you're seeing dots being connected here, all right? But that's not all. It gets even crazier, man. You remember how Jordan describes the entire story of how he got the ring? Abin crash lands on Earth. The ring calls out to Hal Jordan. He comes to it, right? What we also found out in this last episode 2, was that a lantern came to whatever this planet was, right? This where the genocide happened, picked up the Manhunter, and the alien race on that planet thought, okay, he's going to take him and to be executed for his crimes, for destroying our entire race, for our entire planet and our civilization. Everyone that we've loved has been destroyed. And so the Green Lanterns, the Guardians have sent the Green Lantern to do justice, to take this Manhunter and destroy him, to execute him. But what happened was, Abin crash landed on Earth. This Manhunter got out, killed him, and is now escaped on Earth, is now living on Earth. The thing is, these alien race on this planet didn't have that context, right? What they think is the Guardian sent Abin Sur to take the Manhunter and put him on Earth as a refugee, to hide him on Earth, because the Guardians are the ones that created the Manhunters, and so they wanted to hide him out. They wanted to hide their creation, keep him safe. So these alien race don't trust the Guardians, which is why they don't trust Hal Jordan, which is why they didn't tell Hal Jordan. Which is why they told John Stewart not to tell Hal Jordan anything, because they just came to this planet, they just got killed, they're trying to find the perpetrator for their destruction, for their death, for their suffering and their pain, and all of a sudden Hal Jordan shows up. Did the Guardians send Hal Jordan? No, I mean they sent Abin Sur to hide their Manhunter on Earth, and now they're sending Hal Jordan to protect him again. So they don't trust the Guardians, they don't trust the Green Lanterns. Now, if we're talking about the Martians here, if we are indeed talking about the Martians, if these visitors are the Martians, that history goes back even further. I talked about this in one of my other videos. I'll post it up here and down below, because that goes into what is potentially the big bad of the DCU. That goes even crazier, okay? But there is a history between the Martians and the Guardians. Now, unlike us, these aliens don't know the whole story. They don't know that Abin Sur crash landed on Earth, and Hal Jordan at the end of the episode comes to the conclusion that this Manhunter was the cause of this crash and the death of Abin Sur. So now we know Abin Sur is the Green Lantern that picked the Manhunter up from this planet. Now, here's the interesting thing. Here's where things get interesting. Hal Jordan said that Earth is not even a part of the Green Lantern's jurisdiction. It's so far out there, it's just a hunk of junk little planet that nobody cares about. So Abin Sur came over by Earth. What was he doing by Earth? Abin Sur came over here by Earth to pick up the Manhunter and crash landed on Earth. What planet is by Earth? What planet is right next to Earth? It's Mars, isn't it? It is Mars. And we saw in the trailer, it was a rusty red looking planet that has 2 moons, which is Mars. So Abin Sur came to Mars to pick up the Manhunter, crash landed on Earth. So if we're talking about Mars, if the Manhunter is the part of the destruction of whatever happened on Mars, it's clearly the destruction of the Martians, the genocide of the Martians, which means this guy probably talking to John Stewart is Martian Manhunter, John Jones. At the very least, he's a Martian. The group of people there are the sole survivors of Mars. We're talking about the destruction of Mars here, people. Now, how cool is that, man? How cool is that? We might be seeing Martian Manhunter and the Martians in Lanterns. We might be getting the destruction of Mars in the DCU. How insane is that? That's so cool. Now, you might have some pushback, and I do too, because there's things that don't completely align. There's some holes in this theory. Granted, I have some putty to fill these holes, but we'll get into that. Let's talk about the interrogation scene at the police station. If these are indeed Martians who are intangible, can change the density of their body, can shapeshift, can fly, can have telekinesis, telepathy, all these crazy, insane powers, right? First off, why are they getting shot at a football game? Okay. Second of all, why is the one in the police station? Why does he have an explosive device attached to his skeleton? If you're a Martian, just phase out of the room. You don't need to blow yourself up. You don't need to suicide bomb to get away from the situation. You're a Martian, okay? So how does that make any sense? And I thought Martian Manhunter was the sole survivor of Mars. He was the only green Martian alive. Why is there a group of people standing around him? How does that make any sense? And if you have an entire group of these superpowered, crazy, powerful Martians on Earth, that's going to change the entire dynamic of the DC. That's pretty darn crazy if you have so many Martians on Earth, right? Well, this can all be solved with one thing. There is an interpretation of Martian Manhunter. There is a comic book that was titled Martian Manhunter, where they redo the entire origin story. And Martian Manhunter is actually, John Jones is actually the only one that has all of these crazy powers, because he was created as a weapon. And the other Martians are just regular old Martians. So that could work. That could explain why you have all these other. I mean, it makes sense, right? If you have a genocide, if you have a Holocaust level event on a planet, you're going to have some stragglers, okay? You're going to have some stragglers. And now they're here on Earth. They're just regular old Martians. They can maybe shapeshift, but that's the extent of their ability, okay? Only Martian Manhunter has all of these insane abilities: super strength, super speed, Martian vision, density changing, phasing abilities, all of these telepathy, telekinesis, all of these other crazy abilities. Only one has that, because that could explain why he has all of these abilities, because he was made to be a weapon. They just threw in every single superpower known to mankind, all right, into this one guy. And he's the only one that has that ability, has these abilities. So that would explain all of this stuff, okay? Now, this is not my favorite interpretation of Martian Manhunter. I really like him being the sole survivor of Mars, the last green Martian, right? The last of his kind. I really like that. And that is where this other theory comes from. This is my favorite version of my favorite theory, all right? This is version 2, my favorite version. And it all starts with that pesky little metal detector. That little orb on the metal detector, actually. That alien detector, okay? Didn't you find it odd? You have an all-encompassing alien detector? Like, what are you detecting? You're detecting that they're not from Earth? What does that even mean? Like, Earth is a carbon-based life form. What are you trying to detect? Like, a hydrogen-based life form? A silicon-based life form? Like, what are you trying to detect over here? Okay? How can you have an all-encompassing alien detector? That just doesn't make any sense. It's so vague, and it just... Like, I don't understand that. Like, okay, so this alien detector is weird. Now, let me ask you something. What if this detector wasn't detecting the aliens? What if it was detecting something else? Now, the answer to that question is going to take what we just talked about, the theory that we just talked about, and spin it on its head, completely switch angles for everything. Okay? What if that detector was not detecting the visiting aliens? What if that detector was detecting the Manhunters? We know the Manhunters give off a unique radiation. And what if that's what that detector is detecting? It's detecting that unique radiation. Now, you might say, wait a second, how does that make any type of sense? If you have a detector, if you have this detector that's detecting the radiation, this unique radiation coming off the Manhunters, then the visiting aliens would know exactly who the Manhunter was. How did they die? Like, why were they all dead? If there's only one Manhunter, they should have been able to take him out. Like, how did all the visiting aliens die? That is, like, that idea doesn't make any sense. Well, what if the visiting aliens aren't really aliens? What if they're the Manhunters? What if the man talking to John Stewart in that scene is a Manhunter? What if everybody in that room were Manhunters? Because if these were indeed shape-shifting aliens, when they got shot, you would think that they'd return to their original form. Especially like if they're Martians, they get shot, they're returning to their original form. Even if they're not Martians, you're shooting a shape-shifting alien, they're probably going to return to their original form. But they didn't. They returned. I mean, they stayed human. They stayed in their human form. And as we learned in this episode 2, the way the Manhunters shape-shift, they don't really shape-shift, they adopt shapes. They create a body, because they're synthetic, they create a body, then they inhabit that body. They upload their consciousness to that body. So they create a human figure, and they upload all their data, all their consciousness, all that stuff into that body. So when you shoot that body, it can't shape-shift or anything back to an original form. That is what it is. So when it dies as a human, if it's a human. If it's a monkey, you shoot it, it dies as a monkey. So that's why when these things... So what if these guys, these visiting aliens, were not visiting aliens? They were actually Manhunters. There's no one Manhunter. There's multiple Manhunters still left. And these Manhunters are on the hunt for a visiting alien. The sole survivor of Mars. John Jones. The Martian Manhunter. So the entire story is switched, and it makes so much more sense. You have the Manhunters who were responsible for this extermination of the Martians on Mars. One survives, flees to Earth somehow, and the Manhunters follow him, track him down, hunt him down to Earth, and are now trying to finish the job, exterminate him. Now tell me that's not a good theory. It explains everything. It makes the detector make sense. Now it's detecting Manhunter radiation. It makes the death of the aliens, the Manhunters, actually make sense, because when they're shot, they still retain their human form. It makes sense why they had to blow themselves up. It makes sense why they had a bomb attached to their skeleton, right? Because they're actually machine. They were created. It makes sense. It makes sense. It ties the whole Martian thing with the planet that we're going to go to, right? A red, rusty planet that has 2 moons. What other planet has that? It's Mars. It makes sense why Abin Sur was near Earth, a planet that was not even part of his jurisdiction, because he was coming to Mars. He was near Mars, which is right next to Earth. And honestly, what if he picked up Martian Manhunter from Mars to actually, flee to Earth, to hide on Earth, and then the Manhunters followed, attacked the ship, they crash landed on Earth, and that's what happened. I mean, come on. The dots are connecting. All the dots are connecting. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I'm not saying this is actually what's going to happen. This is what... I'm a big Martian Manhunter fan, you know? So if this does happen, that would be fantastic. That would be super cool. But I'm completely open to whatever the show does, okay? And now this is where But let me know what you think about it, okay? Let me know what you think about the theory. Just give me your thoughts, all right? Let me know if I'm crazy or not. Just give me your thoughts down below. I see a bunch of dots, and with this theory, I see them all pretty much connecting. So, and it's super interesting. It's super cool. It's something that hasn't been done before, but while retaining the essence of the original story. So I mean, it's cool. I think it's cool. So, but now this goes to now we'll talk about the theory that is most likely to happen, because we are watching a Lanterns show. So there is another genocide in the DC universe, another Holocaust level event in the DC universe, okay? And this is why I think it's most likely this, because it is actually tied to the Manhunters, okay? You have to ignore some details, like the red rusty planet with 2 moons, and the sector, right? Because this was sector 2814, right? We're talking about. The story I'm talking about is from another sector, from sector 666. Now, some of you might know what that is, and based on that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Red Lanterns. That bald dude talking to John Stewart might be Atrocitus, okay? And with this show being called Lanterns, and not specifically Green Lanterns, we might be dealing with multiple types of lanterns. So it would make sense why we would have the Red Lanterns and the Green Lanterns in the same show, okay? If we're dealing with a show called Lanterns, it makes sense why you would have both lanterns, multiple lanterns in the show, all right? Also, he specifically said he's hunting a Manhunter. They're on a mission for vengeance, okay? They're on a mission for vengeance, and the word vengeance is used by Atrocitus specifically, okay? So, also, Sector 666. Okay, well, let me talk. Let's go back and talk about the genocide, okay? So, the Manhunters came to this planet, and they treated the citizens like second class, third class. Like they're like, they treated them like trash, okay? And I mean, you know the Manhunters, right? Their view of justice isn't really justice. They'll wipe out things because of hey, you're wrong. We're gonna kill you right here. We don't care about you. That's their view of justice. It's not really justice, okay? So they're on this planet being their tyrannical selves. They start killing everybody. They have this Holocaust level event, this genocide, right? And Atrocitus loses everyone that he's ever known, his entire family. He loses everyone that he loves. Sounds similar to John Stewart's story, John Jones' story, right? Martian Manhunter story. He loses everyone that he loves. And so he seeks revenge. He's seeking revenge on the Manhunters. He wants to exterminate and kill them all. He wants to take revenge. And this rage is what births the Red Lantern Corps. And so right there with that alone, you see the similarity. You see, right? You have this guy, this bald guy talking to John Stewart. Maybe he's Atrocitus. Maybe he is he is recruiting John Stewart to hunt down the final Manhunter and destroy him. He's seeking vengeance. He's seeking revenge. And the people around him, maybe they're the Red Lantern Corps. Now, that's all good and dandy, but you might be wondering, wait, but that's supposed to be Sector 666, you know? I mean, this is not Sector 666. This is Sector 2814 we're in, right? So it can't be the same story, can it? I mean, it makes sense that it could be Atrocitus, right? Because he's seeking revenge. He's hunting down the Manhunter. The Manhunter is responsible for the genocide of his people. I mean, that's all fit. That all fits. But we're in the wrong sector. We should be in 666. But see, here's where there might be some sort of deception, something going on. There might be a little play of numbers here or something. At the start of the show, we see that, I mean, let's look at Superman, right? How that started with 3, then 3-3, and then 3-3-3, like all the years and everything. Like 3 years ago, something happened. 33 years ago, Superman came to Earth, or 30 years ago, Superman came to Earth. All that stuff, right? 3 days ago, Superman had his fight with, or 3 hours ago, Superman, whatever. You remember that, right? In this show, they did 1996, right? Hal Jordan comes on 60 Minutes or something, and then outs himself as the Green Lantern, comes out as the Green Lantern. I think that was 1996. 2016 is where the show is taking place predominantly. 2026 is what we saw. That fast forward in episode 1, right? We fast forward into the future. John Stewart has a French beard. We see Hal Jordan dead on the bleachers. 2016. 1996, 2016, 2020, 26, 2020. What am I saying? 2026. 666. Okay? I don't know how the sectors work in this universe, but we know that Earth is not part of this jurisdiction. It wasn't part of Abin Sur's jurisdiction. So Earth was out of his jurisdiction. And his jurisdiction was 2814. That's what his sector was. His sector was 2814, and the ring passes to Hal Jordan, and it says you are now in charge of sector 2814. But if Earth is not part of Abin Sur's sector, where is Earth? What sector is Earth a part of? Is it a part of 666? Is it a part of sector 666? Is there a reason why we got 1996, 2016, 2026, was that a nod? Was that a hint to where the direction we're going with the show? Or are we dealing with Sector 666 and the Red Lanterns here? That could be the case, and that could be extremely interesting as well. And again, I feel like that's more likely, because why would you hijack a Lanterns TV show with a Martian Manhunter storyline? You know? I mean, I would like that, obviously, because Martian Manhunter is my favorite superhero. But it would make more sense to have the Red Lanterns in a Lantern TV show. You know, that would make more sense. But then the question is, and I don't have any putty to fill these holes. Okay, I don't. Not like my Martian Manhunter theory. Why are the Red Lanterns shape shifting? Why have they shape shifted into human form? You know, that's like, I don't know if the Red Lanterns shape shifting to begin with, and second of all, I don't know why they would shape shift, and if they are indeed Red Lanterns at this point, where's their ring? Is it hidden or something? And if they got shot, right? They got shot at the game. They still retained their shape shifted form. If they like that, the shape shifting stuff, the rings, them being Red Lanterns, it's a bit odd. It doesn't fully make sense yet. I need more information. You know? I mean, again, I'm also not a Red Lantern expert, so maybe you guys can help me out with that. But I feel like what's most likely is he is probably Atrocitus, because the Manhunter tie-in, obviously, because we know the Manhunters were responsible for the death of his family and all that stuff, the pain and suffering. And this is a Lantern show, you know, so it makes sense with the Red Lantern. So those are my three theories, right? We had my favorite theory and the alternate version of that theory, which is my favorite theory, and the Red Lantern Atrocitus theory, which is probably most likely for a Lantern show. But Let me know your thoughts down below. Which one is your favorite theory, and which one do you feel like is the most likely to happen in this lantern show? So let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Down below in the comment section. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.